Welcome to today's video. If you're here, maybe you're looking for something, understanding, comfort, or just a moment to breathe. Today, we're going to talk about mental health, but in a way that feels simple and natural. No complicated theories, no overwhelming advice, just a conversation, like a friend talking to another friend. This video is also a chance for you to practice your English listening skills. As you listen, don't worry about catching every single word. Just focus on the meaning, the emotions behind the words, and let it all flow naturally. Have you ever felt exhausted? Not just physically, but mentally? Like your mind is carrying a weight that no one else can see? Some days you wake up, stare at the ceiling, and ask yourself, am I really okay? Mental health isn't something distant or abstract. It's as real as the air we breathe, as important as the beat of our hearts. Yet so many of us ignore it, push it aside, or pretend that everything is fine, until it isn't. We live in a world that celebrates being busy, being productive, being strong. But real strength isn't about ignoring our struggles. It's about recognizing them and allowing ourselves to feel. It's okay to say, I'm not okay. It's okay to take a step back. I used to think that stress was just a part of life. That feeling overwhelmed meant I needed to work harder. But the more I ignored my feelings, the worse they got. Until one day I realized, if I didn't take care of my mind, who would? Taking care of our mental health doesn't always mean making huge changes. Sometimes the smallest things can have the biggest impact. Have you ever noticed how different you feel after a good night's sleep? Or how your mind clears up when you step outside and breathe fresh air? These moments matter. Simple habits, like drinking enough water, moving your body, taking deep breaths, can help more than we realize. And then, there's the power of talking. Sharing your thoughts, even if it's just writing them down, can lighten the weight you carry. And let's not forget the importance of saying no. No to things that drain you. No to expectations that don't serve you. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. One of the hardest things about struggling with mental health is feeling like you're alone. But the truth is you're not. Someone out there understands what you're going through. Someone out there has felt the same fears, the same doubts, the same loneliness. And if you ever need help, there are people who care, who are willing to listen. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to pretend. Healing takes time. Growth takes time. And no matter where you are on your journey, you are enough, just as you are. Sometimes, we get so caught up in our daily routines that we forget to check in with ourselves. We push through exhaustion, ignore stress, and tell ourselves that we'll deal with it later. But the truth is, our minds don't work like machines. They need care, attention, and moments of stillness. Have you ever sat in silence and truly listened to your own thoughts? Not the loud worries or the endless to-do lists, but the quiet voice underneath, the one that asks for rest, for understanding, for kindness. We often give kindness to others without hesitation. But when it comes to ourselves, we're much harsher. We judge our emotions, tell ourselves we shouldn't feel this way, and compare our struggles to those of others. Other people have it worse. I shouldn't complain. I just need to be stronger. But strength isn't about ignoring pain. It's about acknowledging it and learning how to heal. Healing doesn't always look like a grand transformation. Sometimes it's as simple as allowing yourself to slow down, to take a moment in the morning before reaching for your phone, to enjoy a meal without rushing, to go for a walk without needing a destination. Our minds need space to breathe, space to process, space to be free from constant pressure. In a world that tells us to always be productive, rest can feel like a waste of time. But the reality is, rest is not a luxury. It's fuel. A car can't run without gas. A phone can't function without charging. And our minds can't keep going without moments of recovery. Think about the last time you truly rested. Not just slept, but rested. When you let yourself be present in the moment, without feeling guilty. When you did something simply because it made you happy, not because it was productive or useful. Those moments matter. They remind us that we are more than what we achieve. And then there's connection, the way we feel when we open up to someone who truly listens. Sometimes we hesitate to share our struggles because we don't want to be a burden. But the right people, the ones who care, don't see us as a burden. They want to be there, just as we would want to be there for them. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out, even if you don't have the right words. Sometimes all you need to say is, I'm feeling overwhelmed. And that's enough. You don't have to explain everything. You don't have to have a perfect reason for why you feel the way you do. Your feelings are valid simply because they exist. There's a quiet kind of strength in allowing yourself to be vulnerable, in admitting that you don't have all the answers, in recognizing that healing isn't a straight line, but a journey with ups and downs. Some days will be better than others, and that's okay. What matters is that you keep going. And as you move forward, remember to be patient with yourself. Growth takes time. Healing takes time. And you are allowed to take that time. You are allowed to move at your own pace. We often think of mental health as something separate from our daily lives, something to focus on only when things get really bad. It's not just about overcoming struggles. It's about creating a life where our minds can thrive, not just survive. Have you ever paid attention to the way you speak to yourself? If you make a mistake, do you say, "That was silly, but I'll do better next time"? Or do you immediately think, "I'm such a failure. I can never get anything right"? The words we use with ourselves matter. Our minds absorb them like a sponge, shaping how we see ourselves and the world around us. If a friend was struggling, you wouldn't tell them they're not good enough. You wouldn't say they should just get over it, or that their feelings don't matter. So why do we say these things to ourselves? What if, instead of criticism, we practiced self-compassion? What if every time we felt overwhelmed, we reminded ourselves, "I am doing my best and that is enough"? One of the most powerful things we can do for our mental well-being is to create an environment that nurtures us. This doesn't always mean making big changes. Sometimes it's as simple as setting up small habits that bring us peace. Think about the spaces you spend the most time in. Do they make you feel calm or chaotic? Are they filled with things that inspire you, or do they drain your energy? A cluttered space can lead to a cluttered mind. Something as small as organizing your desk, lighting a candle, or adding a plant to your room can create a sense of peace. Beyond our physical space, the people we surround ourselves with also have a huge impact on our mental state. Have you ever noticed how some people make you feel lighter, while others leave you feeling drained? Protecting your energy is not selfish, it's necessary. You don't have to be available to everyone all the time. It's okay to step back from relationships that feel one-sided or toxic. The people in your life should lift you up, not weigh you down. And then there's the way we spend our time. When was the last time you did something purely because it made you happy, without worrying about being productive? In a world that values constant achievement, taking time for joy can feel like a waste. But joy is not a luxury. It's fuel for the soul. Maybe it's reading a book, painting, listening to music, or just sitting quietly with a cup of tea. Maybe it's watching the sunset, playing with a pet, or laughing over a silly joke. These small moments of happiness add up. They remind us that life is not just about responsibilities and deadlines. It's also about experiencing beauty, love, and connection. And speaking of connection, have you ever noticed how much lighter your heart feels after a genuine conversation? Sometimes, just knowing that someone understands can make all the difference. But the hardest part is often reaching out. We hesitate because we don't want to be a burden, or we think no one will understand. But more often than not, the people who love us want to help. They just don't always know what we need until we tell them. Even if you don't feel comfortable talking to someone yet, writing your thoughts down can be just as powerful. Putting emotions into words, even in a private journal, helps process them. It's a way of acknowledging what you're feeling instead of letting those emotions build up inside. Another thing that can transform the way we experience life is gratitude. And I don't mean forcing ourselves to be positive all the time. That's unrealistic. But when we make it a habit to notice small moments of goodness, it shifts our perspective. Gratitude doesn't erase problems, but it helps us remember that even in difficult times, there is still light. It can be as simple as taking a moment at the end of the day to think about 3 good things that happened. Maybe you heard a song you liked. Maybe you had a kind interaction with a stranger. Maybe the weather was nice. These little moments matter. They are reminders that no matter how heavy life feels, there is always something worth holding on to. And finally, let's talk about acceptance. Sometimes, the hardest thing to do is accept where we are, especially when we feel stuck. We think, I'll be happy when I have this job, this relationship, this achievement. But the truth is, if we're always waiting for something external to make us feel okay, we'll never truly find peace. Real peace comes from within. It comes from knowing that even if we're not where we want to be yet, we are still enough. It comes from allowing ourselves to grow at our own pace, without comparing our journey to others. We often think of mental health as something we need to fix, as if feeling sad, anxious, or lost means something is wrong with us. But what if we change the way we look at it? What if, instead of seeing emotions as problems, we saw them as messages, signals from our mind and body telling us what we need? Imagine if we treated our emotions the way we treat physical pain. When we feel thirsty, we drink water. When we feel tired, we sleep. But when we feel lonely, overwhelmed, or unmotivated, we often try to ignore it, distract ourselves, or tell ourselves that we shouldn't feel this way. But emotions don't disappear just because we push them away. They stay, waiting to be acknowledged. Think of emotions like waves in the ocean. Some are small, barely noticeable. Others are strong, pulling us under. But no wave lasts forever. It rises, it peaks, and it falls. The same is true for emotions. No feeling, no matter how overwhelming, will last forever. And when we stop resisting and start accepting them, they pass through us more gently. But how do we do this? How do we sit with difficult emotions instead of fighting them? It starts with curiosity. Instead of thinking, I shouldn't feel this way, try asking, why do I feel this way? Instead of judging yourself, approach your emotions with kindness, like you would for a friend. Sometimes emotions are linked to deeper needs. Maybe your stress is telling you that you need a break. Maybe your loneliness is a sign that you need more connection. Maybe your sadness is a reminder to slow down and process something painful. When we listen to what our emotions are telling us, we can respond with care instead of resistance. But accepting emotions doesn't mean letting them control us. It's about finding balance, feeling what we need to feel, but not letting it define who we are. One way to create this balance is through mindfulness. And no, mindfulness doesn't mean sitting in meditation for hours. It simply means being present, fully experiencing a moment, without rushing to the next thing. Have you ever eaten a meal while scrolling on your phone, only to realize later that you barely tasted it? Or walked somewhere while thinking about 100 other things, barely noticing your surroundings? When we're always in our heads, we miss out on life happening right in front of us. Try this. The next time you drink a cup of tea or coffee, really focus on it. Notice the warmth, the aroma, the taste. When you go outside, pay attention to the way the air feels, the sounds around you, the colors you see. These small moments of presence can ground us, helping us feel calmer and more connected to the world. Another powerful way to care for your mental health is movement. Not exercise for the sake of appearance or achievement, but movement that feels good. Have you ever noticed how much lighter your mind feels after a walk? Or how dancing to your favorite song can shift your entire mood? Movement isn't just about the body. It's a way of releasing emotions, resetting the mind, and reminding ourselves that we are alive. And then there's the power of creativity. When was the last time you created something just for the joy of it? When you were a child, you probably drew pictures, told stories, or made up silly songs without worrying if they were good. But as we get older, we start thinking that creativity has to have a purpose, that if we're not good at something, it's not worth doing. But creativity is not about talent. It's about expression. Writing, painting, singing, crafting, these things help us process emotions in ways that words alone sometimes can't. Even if no one ever sees what you create, even if it's just for yourself, the act of creating can be deeply healing. Of course, taking care of mental health isn't just about what we do. It's also about what we allow. What kind of information do we consume daily? What kind of energy do we surround ourselves with? Think about the content you take in. Social media, news, entertainment. Does it lift you up, inspire you, make you feel good? Or does it leave you feeling drained, insecure, or hopeless? The things we consume shape our thoughts more than we realize. If we're constantly surrounded by negativity, comparison, or unrealistic expectations, it's no wonder we feel exhausted. That doesn't mean avoiding reality or pretending everything is perfect. It just means being mindful of what you give your attention to. Follow people who inspire you. Read things that make you think in a positive way. Spend time in spaces that make you feel good. The things we feed our minds are just as important as the things we feed our bodies. And finally, let's talk about self-worth. So many of us tie our worth to external things. How much we achieve, how we look, how others see us. But what if we separated self-worth from all of that? What if, instead of thinking I am valuable because I do this, we simply thought, I am valuable because I exist? You don't have to prove yourself to deserve kindness. You don't have to earn love. You don't have to accomplish anything to be worthy. If you've been feeling lost, if you've been doubting yourself, if you've been struggling, know this. You are enough. Right now, exactly as you are. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to be perfect. You are doing the best you can, and that is enough. So take a deep breath. Let go of expectations that don't serve you. Treat yourself with kindness. And remember, no matter what you're going through, you are not alone. When we think about mental health, we often focus on the big things, overcoming anxiety, dealing with stress, finding happiness. But sometimes the smallest habits make the biggest difference. The way we start our mornings, the words we say to ourselves, the little choices we make each day, these all shape our well-being more than we realize. Have you ever noticed how the first few minutes of your day set the tone for everything that follows? If you wake up and immediately check your phone, reading stressful emails, or scrolling through social media, your mind is already in a state of reaction. But if you start your morning with something calming, stretching, deep breathing, or simply sitting in silence for a moment, you give yourself space to ease into the day. And then there's the power of small, intentional breaks. Many of us push through the day without stopping, thinking that resting will make us less productive. But in reality, short breaks can actually make us more focused and energized. Something as simple as stepping outside for fresh air, drinking a glass of water, or closing your eyes for a minute can reset your mind. Another thing that deeply impacts mental health is the way we handle setbacks. We all experience failure, rejection, and disappointment. But the way we respond to them makes all the difference. Instead of seeing setbacks as proof that we're not good enough, what if we saw them as part of growth? Think about a time you failed at something. Maybe you didn't get the job you wanted, or a plan didn't go the way you expected. At the moment, it probably felt discouraging. But looking back, did it teach you something? Did it lead you in a new direction? Sometimes, what feels like failure is actually redirection, guiding us toward something even better. And then there's comparison, one of the biggest sources of unhappiness. It's so easy to look at other people's lives, especially on social media, and feel like we're falling behind. We see their achievements, their happiness, their success, and we wonder, why am I not there yet? But here's the thing, we are all on different timelines. Just because someone else is succeeding doesn't mean you are failing. And just because your journey looks different doesn't mean you're not making progress. A flower doesn't rush to bloom just because the one next to it already has. It grows at its own pace, in its own time. And so do you. Instead of comparing yourself to others, try comparing yourself to your past self. Are you kinder than you were a year ago? More understanding? Have you learned new things? Overcome challenges? Grown in ways you didn't expect? These are the things that truly matter. And speaking of growth, let's talk about the way we handle emotions. Not just the difficult ones, but also the good ones. Many of us are quick to dwell on negative feelings but struggle to fully embrace positive ones. Have you ever had a moment of happiness, only for your mind to immediately think, this won't last, or something bad is probably going to happen next? This tendency to downplay joy is something we learn over time, often as a way to protect ourselves from disappointment. But what if, instead of fearing that happiness won't last, we allowed ourselves to enjoy it fully, even if just for a moment? The next time you feel joy, even for something small, pause. Let yourself soak it in. Maybe it's the warmth of the sun on your skin. Maybe it's the laughter of a loved one. Maybe it's the feeling of being completely lost in a song you love. Whatever it is, let yourself feel it without holding back. Because these little moments of joy, they add up. And they remind us that even in the hardest times, there is still light. And finally, let's talk about self-acceptance. Many of us spend our whole lives trying to fix ourselves, thinking that we need to be more, do more, change more before we can finally feel good enough. But what if we are already enough? What if, instead of constantly trying to become someone else, we focused on embracing who we already are? Self-acceptance doesn't mean giving up on growth. It simply means recognizing that you are worthy, even as you evolve. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be you. So as you move forward, be gentle with yourself. Celebrate the small victories. Give yourself permission to rest. Let yourself feel. And most importantly, remind yourself, every single day, that you are enough.